We're your host, Derek and Gina England. We're going through this book that we created at Family ID. It's designed to be a beautiful paperback coffee table book for you. And if you don't want the book, you can get the free downloadable ebook, completely and totally free. It goes through all the questions for sons and daughters, step by step, and how you can be a great encouragement to them and answer the questions that they are seeking without even knowing it and without even verbalizing it. And today, we get to get into the very first question in the whole thing, and it is...
The first question is, am I worth fighting for? Now, this question, Derek, is on both the questions that a son asks and a daughter asks. And it's the only one that overlaps in the three questions. I'm super excited to dive deeply into this with you. I don't know if I'm so excited because I'm an Italian and I just have this fighting spirit in me. So fighting for my family comes naturally, or I'm just this mama bear that loves to fight for my family. But I'm excited to discuss with you why it's important to answer the question of, am I worth fighting for?
So tell me, why is it important?
They're going to receive their value from that question, and they're going to receive their identity. And if we as parents do not answer that question for them, that can greatly change them into their adolescent years and into their adulthood, either living a life feeling unworthy of fighting for, or going on and having relationships that test their worth and if they're worth fighting for.
I think it's a value-based question, right? Like, am I worth fighting for?
Right.
And so if parents or siblings or if their family doesn't answer this question directly, then, okay, if I'm not worth fighting for, what am I worth?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I determine that worth? And how do I find that worth? And who will fight for me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you're saying, right?
Right.
Okay, so define it. What does fight look like? What can it be? How do we fight for our kids, sons and daughters? And it might look different for both.
Sure. Speaking just from our family of having a daughter and a son, I think many things that we do for them are the same because there's so many aspects to fight for a child on. Fighting for their physical safety, making sure that they're safe, fighting for their mental safety. What things are we exposing them to? And it's okay to be different and it's okay to say no. I think so many times we're scared to look like, oh, we're the only family that doesn't watch this. We're the only family that doesn't read this or participate in these things. And I want to let you parents know that it's fine to say no. It's okay to swim upstream. And it's challenging, yes, but it's worth it. And it's a way that we can fight for our family. Actually, it reminds me of a story of Corrie ten Boom from her book, The Hiding Place, where she was asking her dad a question. Thought she was too young to answer. And so on a train ride, the train stops and he asks Corrie to grab the luggage and carry it for them. And she attempts to grab the luggage, but it's too heavy for her to carry. And so he answered that question to say, okay, until you are able to carry the suitcase, then I'll answer that question for you. And so I think, what kind of weight can our children actually bear? And are we giving them too much weight too early on?
Interesting. So if what you're saying is, I remember that book and I remember how impactful it was. He was saying it's too heavy for you to bear right now. I think so many parents have a tendency to miss out on that. And that's not a judgment. That's what I've witnessed in friends and family and in doing years of men's ministry and family ministry is just, it's okay to not dive in headfirst into every topic, into every movie, and it's okay to look different and be different.
Right. I totally agree. Makes me think of looking different. Another way that we can fight for our family and our kids is through relationship. And that's, you see a lot of families that are out every single night of the week and they're, dividing to conquer everything. Okay, I'm here with her tonight, you're there, and we end up being like two ships at sea. And so I think a way that we can fight for our kids is through relationship and being able to say, no, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to participate in that tonight because I'm choosing to fight for our relationship. And I think there can be pushback from kids, maybe being the only child not to participate in that event, or even as a mom or a dad, looking like that one parent that, oh, they're going to say, they're the ones that said no. And I think let's be okay with saying no. Let's be okay with looking different. and figure out, do you want to go where these people are going, or do you want to be on a different path?
And I think for me, it looks different for girls than it does for boys.
Sure.
So the way, we're blessed having a son and a daughter, and it uses kind of a different side of your heart, if you will. For me, I love my kids, of course, equally to the 10,000th degree. But for Sawyer, the way I want to fight for her is more protection. I want to stand in the gap. I want to guard her and shield her and make sure that everything's secure for her.
Right.
But for Jack, yes, at an early age, young, I want to stand in that gap and protect him. But then fighting for him almost comes in the form of supporting him or encouraging him, leading him, giving him safe space to grow, develop, sometimes fail.
Right.
But support him in that and say, hey, man, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. If it's something too heavy for you to carry, like you're talking about, I'll help you carry it. We're in this together. But that way he can grow and develop and eventually stand in the gap and protect the women in his life. Will you fight for me? I think to our daughters comes across as, yes, I will protect you. And I think to our sons, it comes across as, yes, I've got your back.
Right. I was thinking that same phrase when you were bringing up sons, like, yes, you have his back. And I think for our daughter, and even me being a daughter and a mom and a female, just wanting to feel safe and wanting to feel secure and protected. I don't know if it's just this innate wiring that God has made us, but I can see how we can protect a daughter and a son differently.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so why is it important that we answer these questions for them at an early age or young teens or even older teenagers, hopefully before they leave the house? And second part, is it ever too late to answer the question for your son or daughter?
So first part, why is it important to answer early on or while our children are still in our home? Because their identity is being formed within the home. And so when they are released out into this world, they're going to leave with a belief of their value. And we want them to know that, yes, absolutely, they are worth fighting for, and not a diminished value of they're not worth it, or giving themselves away to people or ideas and looking for identity in others. And so, yes, let's absolutely let them know you are worth fighting for, and that they're not looking for validation in others, that they know their self-worth and that they know they're worth protecting.
That's good. Yeah, you said giving themselves away. I think that's something I'd never thought of before, but I can totally see that if somebody maybe doesn't have that question answered on, their family will fight for them, their mom will fight for them, their dad will fight for them, their brother or sister will fight for them, then they will, or potentially could, give pieces of themselves away to everybody, hoping that person would fight for them. Right. I was talking to somebody the other day and thinking, okay, if it doesn't get answered, or it gets answered with a no, mom and dad will not fight for me. I can only imagine what that does. Somebody walking into a relationship or walking into a marriage, seeking and hoping and really testing everybody, testing a friendship of, they put themselves in either unhealthy situations to see if somebody in their family will come save them, or if their friend group will come show up on time, and everything becomes a test. Putting themselves in a marriage and then suddenly testing their spouse to say, oh, hey, I'm going to react or act this far-fetched way. Will you come after me? I'm going to leave. Will you come chase me? Will you come after me? And the spouse or the friends or whoever, they don't know it's a test.
Yeah.
And usually that person doesn't even know it's a test either. They don't know what they're searching for. And that's why I think it's so important that when young kids ask very clearly, hey, will you be there? Will you show up on time? Will you pick me up from school on time? Will you pick me up from my friend's house on time? Will you constantly fight for me? And they get answered with a yes. It's crazy important. And when we answer it with a no, we carry that, or sons and daughters carry that with them their whole life.
Yeah. It is a lifelong impact, and there's lifelong implications that we as parents need to take seriously, because it's not just in our adolescent and childhood years that we're affecting our sons and daughters, but for the future decisions that they'll make as adults. And so let's come out swinging that, yeah, absolutely, you are worth fighting for.
How do we fight for our kids
Great.
spiritually?
I think one, let's model what a relationship with the Lord looks like. Let your kids witness you having your Bible open or praying or praising the Lord. Let that look common to them and not foreign. I know a lot of people, me as a mom, like I wake up and do my quiet time at, before anyone here is awake. And so sometimes they don't see that aspect early in the morning. They're asleep. But modeling that for them and then also encouraging that in them. So for us, telling our kids, okay, have you had your quiet time today? And that's kind of the standard in our home is you're going to have a quiet time before we get into school, before we get into TV or anything, just showing that this is the priority, showing up at church, promoting Christ-like friendships that will be iron sharpening iron. And just living out God's word. So when his word commands us to do something, let's do it. Let's be on board with it. We don't want to be lip service to our kids. I don't want to be a theologian and know a lot about the Bible and not do it. I don't want to be a phony to them or fake. Mom teaches the Bible and then she comes home and acts, the opposite. I don't want that for them. And so I think there's so many things, and we'll probably get into it in different episodes. But spiritually, I feel like that's the way. What would you say about that?
Well, I think a couple things. One, I think fighting for your kids spiritually, I heard this from a pastor, that one of the greatest impacts on a child's faith becoming their own and carrying it through school into adulthood is praying and seeing miraculous or answered prayers.
Oh.
So, hey, praying and asking for things from God and then seeing God answer those prayers. That builds their own faith. And I think that's something that we can do as parents is to encompass that or incorporate that in daily routines. Hey, let's pray together. Let's seek the Lord together. Let's do these things. And that is fighting for our kids spiritually.
Right.
And then something, as you're talking about physically and relationally and spiritually, so much of it comes to integrity and just following through when we say we're going to do something for our kids, following through and doing that.
Right.
And so, I encourage any parents out there listening, we're not experts. I mean, we're not counselors, we're not psychologists, we're just parents.
Yeah.
We've had the blessing of doing family ministry for a while, and I've helped in some men's ministry stuff. But I think one of the greatest things that parents can do to answer the question for their kids, will you fight for me? Or am I worth fighting for? Is to consistently show up with integrity. Follow through.
Right. It's good.
Pursue your kids in the sense of, hey, if they need your help, be there. There's this hyperbole, right? This on either extremes. And I think it creates consequences down the road. But you see parents on one end who kids get into trouble and their parents answer the question with a resounding no. I will not fight for you because no, you're on your own and this will make you tough and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And the kid honestly can internalize abandonment. And it creates this mental switch of, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm all on my own.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the hyperbole is a parent that smothers their kids, that does everything for them. And it creates this resignation for the kid of, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not strong enough to do it. My parents are going to smother me on the other end of that. And so it is finding that balance and that rhythm. And it's that integrity of fighting for our kids and showing up, doing what we say we're going to do, and being there for them on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I believe that there's so many ways that we can prove to our sons and daughters that they're worth fighting for. And some ways that we've discussed so far have been physical protection, mental protection. We've talked about relationally protecting the relationships in the family. Also, spiritually, we got to brush on that. And then emotionally, making sure that our kids, their hearts feel safe with us. Their hearts and their minds and their bodies are fully safe with us. And I think the big thing is, do they have a defender in us? Do they have an advocate in us? Do they know that if there's an issue, mom and dad are there for them, advocating for them, defending them, fighting for them?
You talked about an advocate and a defender. And I think we have to show up for our kids and be present even when they fail or it feels like failure.
Right.
Knowing that we're not leaving, we're not performance-based. We will always fight for them and be there for them. And I heard a pastor say, we need to treat mistakes as mistakes and sin as sin. And I think when we do that as a parent, we are fighting for them because we're fighting for the greater good. That's what we're fighting for, right? Is we're fighting for long-term growth and development, not necessarily immediate satisfaction. And for me, I believe that our words have incredible power. And so when we can communicate that to our kids, to our sons and our daughters of, hey, this is why we are making this decision.
Right.
For us, 12 years ago, we went through Family ID. And as a result of that, we came out with our family core values. One of those is being radically protective of our quality time. Well, now we can put a why, like you mentioned, why we're not okay being apart 6 nights a week is because who we are is somebody who's radically protective of our quality time. And so when we can communicate that very clearly, hey, this is why we're choosing not to watch that movie. This is why we're choosing not to hang out with those people. This is why I called that parent or that teacher or that bully or whoever it is for you to stand in that gap when you can't stand for yourself. Hey, this is why I called my friend over because Jack, you don't know how to do something. I don't know how to do something, but I've got a buddy who's an expert and I will fight for us to be the best and to get this project done. This is why we're doing the things we're doing.
Yeah, I love that.
If you want to develop your family core values, mission statement, and vision statement, Family ID has a completely free Family ID masterclass where you can walk through family identity, purpose, and direction and put it all together and understand that, hey, how you live life begins with who God created you and your family to be. And we'll link that in the show notes here. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Again, we're going through 3 questions every parent needs to answer for their sons and their daughters. And we just covered number 1, am I worth fighting for? Next week, we'll be coming back, answering another question, and we'll continue work through the book. Thanks, babe.
Thanks. Thank you.